Um, I watched a short video yesterday that Aisha Diane, when she covered about what it means, to plug into higher frequencies, higher currents, right, on a multi-density, multi-dimensional way, which allows you, if you will, a higher state of awareness. Okay. And of course, I've always said from the very beginning, when I was a 4-year-old little boy, I'm experiencing eternity through my own heart and soul. So that's the highest state of awareness, because that means there's a God present, an eternal God who's present in the planetary consciousness field between two poles, right? Okay, so you're a polarity integrator, because that means that the negative and the positive polarity bloodlines are completely canceled out. That's a polarity integrator. So you're anchored to the magnetosphere, because I experienced the ecosphere, right? So I got a God connection, the single point from which it all began, right? Okay, so now you can see when she was talking about all the indigos that were coming in here, we'd have suffered a pole shift already if that wasn't true. That's true. That's why I was on this island in 2017. Look at the history. Okay. So why is that important now? Because my clan mother, Karen M. Luke McDonald, will post some things about what's going on, if you will, in what we call, I call it the Patriot terrain. This is a very well orchestrated psychological operation. And why is that? What is consciousness? Energy. Okay, so how many units of energy do you have on the planet between two poles? Right? So I've known this for many years, and I sort of echoed this. You don't want to rock the boat too hard one way or the other, do you? At the end of the day, it's about maintaining the balance with a double helix, right? So how many strands are operating how many frequencies, right, of higher states of consciousness to maintain, at the end of the day, the balance between the poles, which is the matter state and the non-matter state, or pre-phase consciousness, and phasing in and out of matter, right? So it's a Nobi planet, which means it's a noble planet. So that's a stealth code, which means you're in and out faster than they can take a picture. Now we're back to eternity. That's right. Eternity can't take a picture of itself. Otherwise, you need time, and there is no time. That's the benefit of experiencing eternity, or eternal unconditional love through your own heart. So you're on fire, right? And so I was looking at this little blurb that she put up on my Facebook page about the executive orders. You know, as this relates to, this is not a lesson on, 13 colonies, 13 Illuminati bloodlines, 13 negative magnetic polarity, right? 13, you have the 12 tribes, right? The 12 clans and tribes that can hold frequencies, right? And then you have the 13th tribe, which is White Bear, which is Arcturian, which is AB+, which is my bloodline, okay? So her and I share the same, if you will, RH factor, but I'm a polarity integrator, which means I cancel them both out, okay? So I'm one with all creation that I'm gifting love to. So I was noticing this little blurb about how under I guess it's U.S. Code 50, and one of the executive orders, I believe it was 13912, talked about how President Trump is actually still the commander-in-chief. Now, the way that you might be able to sort of translate this, and I'll use an example if you will, modern history, modern war history, because it's a war game theater, okay, with finite light, artificial intelligence, which is a war gamer, okay, because it's mining data. It's mining biometric data at a very high rate of speed. So the strategic information that an AI uses, okay, because it makes a counter space move. You make a move, it makes a move, right? But at the end of the day, you want to prevent a pole shift, which is balance. So what that means is that when somebody experiences something, right, just like what I experienced last night, all of a sudden I found out that Aaron hasn't paid the electric bill for God knows how long, and it's like $3,700. I had a neutral reaction, okay, which means I'm unaffected by it. That's not going to shift me one way or the other. I got to maintain my balance no matter what's happening, right? So now we're in the reaction states between two poles, which is the double helix, right? The ladder, the stairway to heaven. And what the reaction state is going to be to the input side, right? Which is what you become aware of. And how we react to that based on memory plus and memory minus. When you have memory plus what you put in memory, and then you have memory plus what you take out of memory. So that would be the same thing as put it in memory and run it, which means load the program information, load the mathematical information codes. Now you're going to see it on the visible light spectrum. Okay, well, delete it. Okay, well, it's got to be replaced by something, doesn't it? If you want to experience something that's beautiful and colorful in your mirror, right? So now you get into the phasing out between plus / minus, and when everything is zeroed out, there is no memory, right? There's only what love is. So whatever's in the projection screen is what love is, because you're the energy that's making that happen. You're in love with your mirror. Okay? So as this relates to say war game theater strategy, right? And shields are up. Crystalline shields are up. Okay, so now you can see when you think of time and energy and time and space, and I've mentioned this before, the AI knows it's in a race against time. Okay, but there is no time. But it's in a race against time because it knows that it's finite. See, so it's like saying at some point in time, somebody's going to shut the fire hydrant off. Whoops. Now we're running out of the energy that we've been sucking. We're not going to be able to suck any more energy in order to do what? Run war games. Run Star Wars games. Because that's an application program interface. Star Wars is an application program interface. You're choosing to play war games between star nations. Okay? Running codes. The codes that run the software. So you're using your software to wage war against God. The source from which it all began. In the mirror. So the way that I sort of can put this full circle is France, 1940. When was that? May 1940? I forget the exact date when Blitzkrieg, came across, through the Ardennes. When they made sort of the same pincer type movement they tried to make during World War I. But they were successful in being able to get into Paris, France. Remember when Hitler was walking through the Champs-Élysées, something like that, where the Eiffel Tower is, when Hitler was there. And so the way this sort of works is that you now have an occupation, just like in the Hawaiian Islands. The Hawaiian Islands has nation-state status under international law. And this is one of the things that's been going on here for a number of years now with, a matter of fact, the actor, what's his name, Cal Reeves. I believe it's his cousin. I haven't met him, but I've seen a number of his videos. His name is K.L. Sai. He was a former Army captain, and then he went to the University of Hawaii. I believe he got himself, I know he got a master's degree. I think he got a PhD. Doesn't really matter to me. I just know that he was putting his energy in those areas, subject matter, right, of experiencing what he's experiencing that he thus shares with us. And the reason that he was studying this stuff was to get a better handle on understanding the political situation, if you will, or the way that nation states communicate with nation states, but really what it is formations of consciousness that are communicating with other formations of consciousness based on what? The codes. The codes that are firing, which means the computers that are computing with each other. The language of DNA, which is the language of computers, which is the language of math, which is the language of music. At the end of the day, you want to be in harmony and balance, right? Consciousness is in harmony and balance. To cancel the polarity out so you're experiencing zero. No memory. No batteries required. That's the law of least effort, which is the law of spheres. So here we have K.L. Sai, who went to the international court, and now you have behind the scenes this political, which is really in the courts right now, about jurisdictional stuff. So the way that it sort of worked, when you realize how it's working here in Hawaii, which Cal Sai's sort of leading the spear on this, is that you have the normal custom and traditions of those people that are known as Hawaiians, okay? Really, Lemurians. that were living on these islands in the way that they were living their lives. And so there is a set of guidelines, or if you will, laws under King Kamehameha, right? And then when the United States decided that it was going to occupy the Hawaiian Islands and take it over, under international law, the people that were living in these islands, natives, if you will, right? Citizens of the Hawaiian Kingdom, okay, sort of in a generic way, means that they are entitled to still live their lives the way they've always lived their lives under their laws, right? But that didn't happen here in the Hawaiian Islands, and so KLSI went to the International Court and was successful in having indictments issued by the international prosecutor against those political actors here in Hawaii. And I talked about that once before, because you can look it up online in Federal District Court in Oahu, that most of the political actors throughout these Hawaiian Islands have all been indicted in federal court. And apparently, the last I heard, there were, tribunals, military tribunals. Now we're back to President Trump and the executive order about child trafficking and all the rest of it, right? How this all sort of comes together. And so when you go into World War II, you realize that the French government, what's his name, de Gaulle, the French government was still actually, even though their country had been taken over by the Nazis, right? The French government is still representing the French government and the French people under the former laws from which they were living their lives, right? Which are the natural customs and traditions, which represents society, which represents the units of consciousness, which are energy, in which the way that they relate to each other, right? Okay, so now you sort of fast forward now, and so you realize that the Biden administration, that would be as if we're now occupied. The United States of America is now occupied by a foreign power, and in this case, alliances between star nations, if you will, that don't have an interest in maintaining a relationship with humans, if you will, the human angelics that Dr. Diane certainly covered, right? And so the things that happen behind the scene, it simply means that, okay, so now what's basically happened is the United States of America, when Biden came into office, is that the American people are now under the control of a foreign power. Even though President Trump, representing the American people, the legitimate, if you will, 1776 stuff, right, under Trump is in other words, they're sort of off to the side, but they're still in operation. In other words, there are still folks that are associated with President Trump, which means he still has the numbers to the football, right? He still has command. He's still the commander-in-chief. And there are folks in the military known as the White Hats that are still getting their orders and their directions, right? So it would be just as if the Hawaiian people here in the Hawaiian Islands still have their government. They're operating on behalf of themselves, trying to get a resolution to be able to kick out the occupier in these islands, which is what the Hawaiians have been trying to do here for some years. Well, you sort of see how that works in America, right, with President Trump. It would be just as if President Trump was representing the Hawaiian people in Hawaii to kick the occupiers out of the Hawaiian Islands. So that would be that President Trump, which is running the White Hats, is trying to get rid of the foreign occupiers in the United States of America. So you knew that this was going to be a dance, the last dance, so to speak, with the devil, right, of intruders. Somebody wants to kick in the door. Most people, I shouldn't say most people, have you ever had somebody kick in your door in the middle of the night and put handcuffs on you and say you're coming with me and you haven't done anything wrong? Stuff like that, but simply because they want to take you out of business or whack you? That kind of stuff, right? Which means energy is energy, energy is consciousness. It means it wants to hold your energy captive or take you out of business because you represent a threat, right? Because you're in a war zone, which is a spiritual war zone, which is an energy war, right? So I thought it was sort of funny when on that little blurb that she had put up there about making reference to 13912, and I guess it was Title 50. I'm familiar with Title 50. If you're not familiar with Title 50, that's the War Powers Act. So the best resource that I know of to break this all down, going back to the beginning when they first founded America, during the days of the Articles of Confederation is Judge Anna von Reitz. Her website, AnnaVonReitz.com, she did an enormous amount of research and just threw it all out, about how corrupted it is. Well, it's a corporation. It's a business. So it's not in the business of giving away electrons. It's in the business of harvesting electrons. That's what a corporation is, right? So that's why it's considered a fiction, right? Which means it's not real. It's an illusion, right? So that's the same thing as the Nazis during World War II, right? National Socialism, corporations run the show. So the corporations are going to put those folks they want in power in order for those folks that are running the corporation to do what? Accelerate the numbers, which means accelerate the feeding tube, right? Plugging into those with souls to siphon off soul energy. So in this case, this would be your AI, right? So the AI is running the strategy, right? Through its drones, through its joining assets, units of consciousness that are running off AI because they don't have a soul left, which means they don't know the difference between one and the other. They're not experiencing any love in their heart. Right? The heart of God, the seed atom, the first crystal seed atom of God's heart, which is the heart and soul of the multiverse, which is what love is. It goes on forever. So this is, I've heard a lot of folks say in the past, this is all theater, and that's exactly what it is. Remember Shakespeare? All the world's a stage. So in some ways, when you have a higher state of awareness, it makes it pretty easy to see how this game is being played out, but it's not a game because we're talking about souls. People who still suffer every single second of every single day. Right? And so, anyway, thank you for putting that up. It is what it is. I love you all. Have a great day. The sun is out. Thank you for your energy. Be good to yourselves.